Welcome back to even more Daily Rundown on Channel 7 with me, Paul Burgess, and our guests this evening, Chris Keogh and Maddie Howard. It's like Keogh without the L.
It is. That's exactly what it's like. Never heard that before, Paul.
I'm so sorry. I'm so typical sometimes. In many respects, Greece has more reason than the UK to be angry with the European Union. Its people and government aren't happy with the austerity measures from the EU and IMF. They've had years of deep recession and high unemployment. And as a frontline country in the migrant crisis, Greece feels let down by Brussels and EU member states in its struggle to cope with the arrival of more than 1 million refugees and migrants over the past 18 months. So could Brexit be followed by Grexit?
Quite possibly. I doubt it though somehow, to be honest with you. Even though I think that the Greek people, I mean, everything that's been said there about the austerity that's been enforced on sort of the nation of Greece, in essence, that's all to do with them basically borrowing more and more money from the EU to keep their economy afloat. And I suppose the real concern, therefore, is that are they in a position to even make it on their own at this stage without it being an absolute catastrophe economically? And you know, you'd say possibly not, I would have thought. So I can't see it happening realistically. Although if there was any nation that actually could genuinely say, well, we've got an absolute grievance here with the EU, then it would be Greek. You know, the Greek people. You know, the Greek people are paying for, in essence, what the government and has done. Although I mean, I think there is a lot of talk about whether or not people pay tax and stuff like that.
Right.
So, you know, there's only so much you can do, you know, on the never really. So yeah, but I mean, it's a difficult issue with Greece because that is one of the genuine grievances that people from this country could have with the EU. You know, and that actually look at how the EU's treating Greece. You know, it's treating it incredibly badly.
That's been cited a few times already now.
It's treating Greece incredibly badly. Really, how are they supposed to actually get up to speed to be, you know, a proper member of the member state and also contribute to the single currency, proper without dragging that down, whilst they've got all these austerity measures in place?
Yeah.
It doesn't seem to me. It seems to be counterintuitive to me. But as to whether or not it'll happen, I'll say I don't think it will do yet. But I think if it does, then that'll be the first of a few, not potentially. Or rather the second of a few, if you can count.
Yeah, because I mean, it's been talked about Europe-wide really now that there are nations who are not happy. I think we have to face the fact that the EU needed reform. It definitely did, but of course you can't change it if you're not in it.
Yeah.
And I think that's the real shame here, is that rather than, I would much rather work on a relationship. I don't like divorces. I think they're ugly and you know, they hurt a lot of people and they cost a lot of money. I'd much rather, why didn't we go to marriage counselling?
You're really onto something there, because I actually thought along those lines when it came to Brexit, because we do have this idea now, this ever-increasing idea that it's okay to be selfish and to just drop things. And you're right, that if you want to change something, you need to reform it. If there's a problem with the EU, why don't we instead have a vote, you know, to change that?
Yeah.
You know, would you like to see changes? Because really, that's what people are after. You know, they want economic improvement, and they want improvement socially in their lives, and for the directives to be less harsh here, etc. So you're right that, you know, there should be a shift towards not just thinking that if you try and look after yourself or what you're told will benefit you, and ditching things, then that'll work. Because we're not an example that leaving the EU is great economically, are we? You know?
Not really.
I don't think
not
they
considering
should,
the first week afterwards anyway, and kind of what happened. I mean, the pound fell to a 31-year low eventually, didn't it? We lost our place as the fifth best or richest economy, and France took our place. We've got companies like Nissan, Virgin and EasyJet all talking about leaving the UK now and setting up their headquarters or the bases they've got here over in European countries, and that's just in the first 7 days.
Yeah, I mean, a bit of that will be part of the negotiations to an extent. There'll be an element of brinksmanship because we've not actually left the EU yet.
No.
All we've got is a non-legally binding referendum
It's 2 years from when we invoke Article 50, isn't it?
It's 2 years to negotiate it. Now, it's going to be, getting my lawyer's hat on now, it would be incredibly difficult to do that in 2 years. Like, the EU has made it, so it's really, really hard to leave it on, and certainly impossible to leave it on your terms.
Yeah.
And this would be my concern, is that even when Article 50 is invoked, you know, realistically, do we stand a chance of being in as strong a position as we are now? I'm not sure. But the difficulty we have is that this whole referendum was brought about as an internal party political thing. It was brought about by David Cameron to win the last general election, to stop a perceived threat from UKIP. And he thought, oh, if I get the EU referendum that people have always been asking for, I'll get rid of all the sort of like the backbenchers, the Eurosceptic fringe who constantly just hector about this. I'll get rid of all that and I'll be able to take the path that I want. And what he misjudged was the mood of the nation in relation to the EU. You know, had the EU referendum been called 10 years ago, prior to the recession and banking collapse, then I think it would have been an overwhelming let's stay, remain vote. But people are looking for somebody to blame for why things aren't going as smoothly as they could. And it's easy for political parties and for internal and businesses and so on to say it's their fault, these other people.
Yeah.
You know, it's the oldest trick in the book, that.
And there's, with all the propaganda against immigrants, as if, you know, a lot of them aren't skilled when they are, and we do use them to supplement our workforce, and they are, you know, foreign people with skills are good for the economy. You know, you can't take someone's benefits and take their jobs simultaneously, can you? It just doesn't make sense. So you're right about the scapegoating. Yeah,
and it's important to know, and it has been proven statistically, that immigrants in this country bring in more than they take out.
It has been proven.
Well, I think between 2001 and 2011, they contributed £20 billion to the revenue.
But you have to look that up, because what, obviously, as you saw with campaigns, what you're being told, what the majority of people are being told, is shown a big shiny poster. You know, these people who look different to you, different culture, they're the wrong uns.
They're coming.
Yeah.
It was a fear campaign, wasn't it? And a lot of it was based on misinformation, is the nicest way of saying it.
Yeah, propaganda.
We'll move on from all this Brexit malarkey now. I'm sick of it, and I'm sure you are too. We'll talk about something rather rude, because the man behind the release of naked pictures of celebrities, including Jennifer Lawrence and Rihanna, is to plead guilty to illegally accessing and downloading their raunchy pics. The 36-year-old Ryan Collins is alleged to have stolen photos from at least 50 iCloud accounts and 72 Gmail accounts. The photos were then posted to the image board site 4chan in summer 2014 in an event dubbed Celebgate. Oh, how original. He could face a 5-year sentence, but parties have agreed to recommend an 18-month sentence. Do you remember this being in the news when the photos were kind of, when everyone was being hacked and their private booby pictures were being shared far and wide?
Yeah, I remember the story. It didn't really sort of have any impact on me at all, because it's not something I'm interested in.
It raised issues about security, though.
Yeah, well, that's the main issue, really. You know, we're living what they call the information age.
Exactly.
You know, and certainly information and information security is going to be the biggest sort of like market going forward, realistically. And it showed how easy it is for people who because there's a monopoly of technical know-how as regards computing still on certain people. So if you know how to hack into something, it can make you a very powerful person on a global scale, really. And I mean, he's used this for something fairly benign, realistically. You know, he's not stolen official secrets and posted them on the internet. But it does show that, you know, these things. He used a classic sort of just phishing technique, just send an email. You know, your security settings need changing, and they click on the link and enter in the password, and then he got it that way. That's apparently how he did it.
Yeah.
Nothing more sophisticated than that.
You're right that it is, you know, it does flag up how secure you are online, but then I also think it flags up how there's a culture of entitlement towards women's bodies and women's value being in their appearance, and how, like, you know, the majority of the pictures were of famous women, and it's used as a way to degrade them, and it is dehumanizing because it's for purely sexualized, reductive reasons, you know, and
Objectifying.
it's completely objectifying.
Absolutely.
And how that's a norm, misogyny, which is really what it is, because it's dehumanizing a person and the fact that they are women, and how I'm sure he thought that there was a big support for those images to be released and that he wouldn't be seen. I'm sure a lot of people didn't just think that he was not a very nice man or a pervert. I'm sure a lot of people didn't see it as a really horrible and a wrong thing to do. I'm sure they just enjoyed the result of it and thought no more of it, you know.
Yeah. I mean, sadly, there always will be a bigger market for pictures of, like, for naked women, images of naked women than there would be of naked men. I would imagine. That's
because of how the media represents.
No, I'm not saying it's the right that's correct. But that is. Yeah.
What do you think?
Those will be a bigger market for, you know.
See, now I disagree. There's a lot of gays out there who do anything for a picture of Liam or his or what's he called? Hemsworth. Yeah.
You know, is that you talking, or is that? Sounds a bit like you wouldn't know that.
No, I do think, because one of the kind of most famous gay magazines is Attitude, and Attitude runs on naked celebrities. That's what they do.
Have they consented to that?
Yes, yeah. But it shows that there's a huge demand for. I mean, this has been pointed out in Game of Thrones, the inequality of nudity within the programme, whereas there is much more female nudity in there. Whether that's because of the script writers or whether it's because of the time it's set, but there is this inequality, and you know, some of us want to see some Jon Snow with his bits out. So if he consents and he's happy with that, that's the important point there.
Then you still have your own agency, you know, so you still have your own identity.
Yeah.
And there is a difference between objectification of men and women. So a naked man, it will still be seen as, you know, he is a person with a personality behind that.
Sorry, going to have to jump in there. Right, that's all the news we can manage for now. We're sick of it. Next up, we have Dr. Thomas Tunstall-Alcock from Manchester University. Later, our guests will have something to say too. Plenty more to come from us. Please stick with us on the Daily Rundown.